What's up, everybody, and welcome back to another video from the 107 MMA channel. This is a video that I've been wanting to make for quite some time on this particular topic, having to do with Moicano's money for Money Moicano. Obviously, this story has gone viral where he turned down money from the settlement with the UFC, and most people are perplexed. They're scratching their heads. They can't seem to wrap their heads around why he would do this. What is the reason? What was he trying to get out of the UFC by making this choice? A lot of people are saying it's chess, it's strategy, it's all this stuff. Look, I feel like I am somebody that can weigh in pretty nicely on this as both an entrepreneur. I started my own business back in 2013, so I understand what it's like to start a business, to have relationships with clients, with other folks, and feel like I want to do the right thing as opposed to just what is contractually owed to me or whatnot. On top of that, I am also an attorney, technically still a licensed attorney in the state of California, although I no longer practice law, but I practiced law for about 4 years. I was a patent attorney. And so I feel like I have a good vantage point on this issue. Let me start by saying this. What I think the biggest and yet simplest thing about this entire issue that most people are missing, and I think people are getting confused because it's just that money, that dollar amount is so high that it's just scrambling people's brains. But at the end of the day, Moicano did this because he wanted to feel clean about it. He wanted to do what was right in his heart. It doesn't matter about what he's contractually owed or what other people are saying for him to do or what the strategy is behind it. And I understand this because I run and operate my business the same way. I want to feel good at the end of every day. And whether that means I'm maximizing my earning potential or not, I don't really care. I want to do things in the right way, and that makes me feel really good at the end of the day. On top of that, you can still do great, I feel like, in life and in business by doing things in a way that makes you feel clean and feel positive. And I think that's exactly what Moicano's doing, and I think that's what many people are missing in this whole story. But anyways, we're going to go through and we're going to start running down the entire scenario. I'm also going to talk about some of the legal details that I feel like, not in terms of the specific case, but in terms of what goes on when two parties are coming to a settlement and whatnot, that I feel like Ariel glosses over in his comments. But we're going to start right at the top, and I'm going to comment throughout. We're going to start at the top with Moicano's original statements that kicked off this entire debate. So check this out.
I remember my first fight in UFC was 8-8, was 8-8 to fight. And then what they say is, hey, you know that 8-8, that was wrong with you because they take advantage of you. It's the same thing. Yeah. You know, you have a girl and then somebody talk to the guy, hey, the guy abused you and this and that. So that's what I'm saying. And then they did the lawsuit, and the fucking lawyer was calling me like every week. Yeah. And he was saying, hey, you have to sign that, you have to sign that. And even a girl went to the gym, to America Top. She said, hey, you have to sign that. I'm looking like to everybody that has the fair share. If you did not sign, they're gonna split your money on the other fighters. You know, they're not gonna get the money back. Okay. Of the 700 fighters, only 3 or 4 did not accept, but they don't say the names.
You're one of only a handful.
Yes, I'm saying that because man, if you like what USA was created, like free market, yeah, you have to. It's the same thing that I was saying about Ben Askren. You know, you have to do your part of the deal. You know, you have to. Yeah. You cannot take advantage of people. But the problem is the mindset of people now is UFC is fucking rich. They can do that. You know, it's not like that, bro. You have to honor your.
I feel so in line with what he's saying. So many people are just like, oh, you should pay them more, they're worth it, they earned it, they put their heart, put their heart on their sleeve, they put it all out there, you need to pay them more and up the salary. It's like people just assume as though there's an unlimited amount of cash reserves that the UFC has, and they could be upping the salaries 3x, 4x, 5x without incurring any loss or any financial difficulties. And that's not the case. They have a business and they're running it, and on top of that, they're probably spending a lot of money in terms of marketing. Now, could they theoretically be, I don't know the intricacies and I haven't investigated it, but my point is to make these broad sweeping statements without fully considering what goes into running a business is quite naive in my opinion. The other thing is he talks about the US and being a free market system and you have to honor your word. Now, there obviously are instances where you may agree to a deal under duress, and then it is later deemed that contract is null and void or that contract was incorrect. And I mean, that's also part of the free market system. So the legal system has a hand in the economics of keeping things fair and equitable. That is true. I think what this is this is beyond just simply economics and law and whatnot in terms of determining what he's comfortable with. This is about him at the time being honest with himself, in my opinion, of saying, I accepted the terms and I was happy with the terms at the time. I wasn't doing this under duress. And whether or not the court has found that perhaps these contracts were not fair, or we were owed money for whatever reason. And we're going to talk about what that settlement means exactly, because this may not even necessarily be the case, right? It may not be that all these fighters sign contracts under duress per se. Settlement is a very interesting thing, because the parties are agreeing to stop the litigation and come to an agreement, not necessarily because it's 100% the right choice, but because both sides are going to spend a ton of money. The UFC maybe doesn't want to spend more money in legal fees, and there's also the chance that they could win outright or they could lose and face much larger consequences, right? So there's also pressure on arriving at a settlement. But anyways, he is making a stance and saying at that time, he personally wasn't under duress. He agreed to those terms. He was happy with those terms. Maybe it was a big opportunity for him at the time. And because he sincerely felt that way, he's sticking to his guns and sticking with it. And I respect this so much, because I took a negotiations class when I was in law school, and I remember what the objective was to try and negotiate with two sides. And it was kind of like a prisoner's dilemma. I don't know if you guys are familiar with the prisoner's dilemma, but it's something like this. I'm going to try not to go delve too deeply into it, but it's basically, if both prisoners agree to say nothing, right, then they both get like 6 months in prison. If one prisoner rats on the other one, that guy will get like no time and the other guy will get 20 years, and vice versa. And if they both rat on each other, they get 5 years, something like this, right? So the idea is the best case scenario for both people in general is to both say nothing. But because of this desire to just try to like maximize your current position, it ends up that the prisoner's dilemma, they'll end up both ratting on each other and both be getting kind of like the worst outcome, 5 years, as opposed to the optimal outcome, whatever. Anyways, that's just like, I hope I summed that up correctly. But my point is that everybody kind of thinks you're just trying to maximize your outcome at the expense of the other person, even trick them perhaps, right? But Moicano's going beyond that, in my opinion. It's not always trying to make the most money. It's not always trying to get to the highest position in life. To me, a big part of it is trying to do the right thing so you can go back and feel good about it. On top of that, like, what is all this about? It's not just about money. These are finite things that expire. When you expire, it's got to be, I mean, I'm getting a little deep here, but I feel like life has got to be more about that. And it's more than that. It's also about making the right decisions. I think becoming a better person, leveling up in terms of your conscience and your morals and whatnot. I mean, I don't know. That's how I feel. So I fully understand where Moicano's coming from this line of thinking. Okay, we're going to move on to the next part. This is where Schaub is actually getting a lot of praise, because I think a lot of people agree with him. I don't, and I'm going to tell you why in a second, but this was Schaub's pretty harsh response to Renato Moicano for refusing to take this money. Check this out.
The thing, Moicano, that money is getting allocated no matter what, buddy. No matter what. You being a company man and not taking it doesn't give you an inch of good grace with the UFC. This does not matter. There's guys that are more famous than you that are fighting right now that are taking their settlement. The UFC does not give a fuck. The UFC made out in spades. They got off so easily. The original lawsuit was for like $1.7 billion. They're paying out like $400 million. And that's already paid. They've already sent that money out. That money's getting distributed around like 400 people. That money's getting distributed whether you take it or not. So whether you don't take it, it's going to other people.
Okay. So this entire, the premise of this argument, it's built on a false premise, a couple of false premises. So number one, let me go in reverse order. He's saying that the UFC got off easy because the entire lawsuit value was 1.6 billion. They only had to pay 400 million. What he may not realize, or maybe he does realize, I think Brendan does have some experience with like litigation and stuff like that, but the amount you're putting down on the complaint, the amount you're suing for, is often more than probably what you're theoretically like reasonably owed. So the idea is you're going to maximize every possibility in terms of filing the complaint and the amount you're trying to get. And you may not get that, but the idea is hopefully the court or whoever is deciding the final payment, if you are victorious, you'll get somewhere, less than that, but still something close to actually what you should be owed. That's also great leverage when you're trying to get a settlement, right? So maybe really the parties that were suing the UFC felt owed like 800 million, right? But they were able to, at the high end of the calculations, put down 1.6 billion. So saying that the UFC got off easy, you can't just say that. There has to be a much deeper dive in terms of what the actual liabilities were, how much they were exposed, etc. Okay. That's number one. Number two is going back to this idea of everybody just thinking the purpose of a negotiation is to maximize your outcome, to get as much money as possible. What about just equity? What about pure fairness? He's trying to say that by doing this, this had to be some play to try and get in the good graces of the UFC. I mean, maybe that's how Brendan thinks, but that's clearly not how everybody thinks. It's not how I think. I don't think it's how Moicano thinks. You know, if you think of everything in terms of just some sort of manipulative tactic to get higher and higher positionally in terms of the company or in terms of how much money you're making, okay, then you could say what you're saying. But clearly, I think that premise is false. I don't think he did it for that reason. He explains later on that that's actually not the case, that he actually got a call from the UFC saying, take the money. Now, he's right. The money has been allocated. That is true. And they're just going to divide the money up and give that amount that he's refusing to take to other people because the judgment has already been decided. What's happening now is if it's a class action lawsuit, right, you're just shrinking the class. So it's still going to the same, they're still divvying up the same amount of money. It's just, instead of dividing it by 400, you're dividing it by 397 now or whatever. So everybody's share is going to marginally increase. He's right about that. But does that mean that he should just take the money if he morally objects to it? I mean, think about what if there was like, I don't know, I'm trying to think of some crazy, what if there was a group of serial killers that had a bunch of money and they were giving it out to everybody in a particular neighborhood. And they're like, all right, we made all this money from all the people that we've killed. And we're now going to just hand it out to everybody in this neighborhood. We already decided to give it out. If you accept it, great. If you don't, we're just going to give it to somebody else in the neighborhood. Would you then say, well, of course you should take it. They're already going to give it out. No, I think that it makes sense, right? You would feel a moral objection to taking that. And I guarantee you then in that case, a lot of people wouldn't take it. Maybe some people would, but I think you'd be like, why? I don't want this. Is disgusting. This feels gross. I think that's how Moicano is feeling. And I think that's why he made the decision that he did, which I fully understand and completely respect. And I think more people need to think about this. This life and decisions you make in this life aren't necessarily just about your position in this life or things that happen in this life, I think. And I think a lot of people would agree with me, regardless of I'm getting almost like a bit spiritual and stuff like that, but it has nothing to do with a particular religious faith or anything like that. I just think in general that we kind of most of us agree that there's some purpose, a greater purpose in terms of trying to be good to other people and trying to do what we feel is right intrinsically and not having to always look around and see what the court has decided, or this is decided, what that is decided, right? So he's making his own decision, and I give him so much credit for doing so, and I completely understand his position. All right, now we're going to hear Moicano's response to Brendan's rant, and I think he sums it up perfectly right here. Check this out.
Stupid, but I think the only thing that drove me crazy was people saying what Brendan Schaub did, saying, for example, oh, he did it as like a chess move to the UFC to make more money. Like that was the thing that freaked me. I was like, come on, bro, that's not why the guy did it. Like the guy actually has principles and
you know what
strategy.
Yeah, that is no problem, because like I say, people see you through his lens. So maybe he would think that, he would say, if I do that, it's because of that. But again, he don't know me. He never talked to me. I don't know him. He doesn't have a clue about what I believe, So it's easy for him to, maybe is he thinking, not me. But I should not say that. But even Hunter called me and say, hey, take the fucking money. Take the fucking money. And I say, Hunter, it's not about you, brother. Don't worry too much. I don't care about what you think or Dana White thinks. I don't care. It's about what I believe. So it's not for the UFC for sure. I could not care less. That's the truth.
I can so relate to this, obviously, with like smaller dollar values, but I could so relate to this with the business that I run. And many times people have wanted to give me money, let's say based on a late cancellation policy or different things like that. But in particular situations, I want to give them a pass. And that's what feels right to me. That's my decision. Regardless of the policy, there might be some extenuating circumstances, and I want to feel clean about it. And I so respect that Moicano is saying this, and I totally understand that position. And what he's saying is why other people are like, I don't get it. That doesn't make sense, because maybe you're just not thinking the same way. You're just thinking, I want to take every scrap that's going to be legally allowed, that's contractually owed to me. I'm just going to take it, regardless of, wait a minute, maybe sometimes the way that I want to feel at the end of this could potentially supersede what has been dictated by the law or somebody else, right? I mean, there's even people, I think, that, let's say you might be owed money in a divorce or something like that, may not even take the money because of moral principle or moral objections. That happens all the time. I think that would be an easier thing for most people to wrap their heads around, because again, they look at this UFC. The UFC is just this invincible machine with infinite sums of money. So for most people, it's like, of course you should take it, grab it. That money's right there. It's going to get reallocated. But what I like is Moicano's not getting clouded by those notions. Plus, he's smart. He knows that it's not a limitless limitless source of funds, but he's sticking to his principles regardless, just because he wants to feel good and he wants to feel clean and he wants to do the right thing. So much respect for Moicano. What a legend. All right, now we're going to move on to Ariel's thoughts. He's going to chime in, and I'm going to give my thoughts and feedback to what he has to say here.
I don't think taking the money represents going back on your word or spitting in their face or not honoring your deal. It has just been deemed that you were owed a little bit more. And so, yeah, initially when I heard about this, I was like, man, I'm surprised Renato, who is so well versed in this world, in the world of economics, and does a great job of educating himself, would feel this way. But if this is the way he feels, then so be it. Ultimately, it seems like the vast majority of the fighters who were subjected to the money didn't feel this way, because at least as he said, I have not verified this, but he says around 3 to 4 to 5 fighters didn't accept the money. That doesn't surprise me as well. It's free money. You're owed that money. The UFC has said, we're not going to penalize you for taking this money. We agreed to the money. We agreed to the money.
All right, so a couple of things. Now, number one, he's saying that all these guys don't feel the same way. It may actually not be the case. A lot of these guys may need the money, and you get 150,000 or 200,000, especially if you're retired and you're not, and maybe you're in debt, maybe you owe money on a mortgage, and this is going to be life-saving cash. You're going to have to take it. So in a lot of those cases, if it comes to either you accepting something that maybe you morally object to potentially, or you guys having to move or something, highly traumatic like that, you're going to be in a position where you're going to want to take that no matter what. That's the first thing. Now, on top of this, it's like Ariel said he's surprised by Moicano doing this with his knowledge of economics and everything like that. I think this goes beyond it goes beyond just basic economics and even basic understanding of law. It's again what he feels is right. Now, Ariel's saying that it has been deemed that you are owed more. Again, that's not what a settlement is. A settlement is both parties via arbitration, most likely, or with help from the judge or whatnot, have come to a mutual agreement where they're like, all right, look, if you pay this much, we'll stop. All right, we accept. Now we're going to let you go on your way. You're not going to be liable potentially for a much larger amount of money out of this 1.6 billion or whatever they were being sued for. So it's a mutual agreement. It's not necessarily, right? A settlement is not saying that the legal system or a judge or a jury have decided unequivocally that those contracts were unfair. So Moicano, and even if it was a jury or a judge, right? Moicano may disagree and may say, no, deep inside, I feel that this is incorrect. I knew exactly what I was doing. I was so happy and grateful for the money at the time because the regional promotions were paying me like $2,000 a fight. Then I was getting 8 and 8 or whatever it may be, right? So my point is even if it was deemed legally that he was owed more money, he still could have a disagreement with that based on his mindset at the time. And I so respect that. And number two, that wasn't what happened here. This was a settlement. So you have to make that distinction and understand what a settlement is versus an actual verdict. And so it wasn't really deemed, it was an agreement. So both sides could just stop. Both sides no longer had to incur more litigation costs. It was a business decision. That's all it was. And so I think, once again, Moicano's decision, it just really resonates with me and it makes total sense in my opinion. All right, moving on to our last section here. Brendan Schaub responds. The saga's going like back, forth, back, forth. He even mentions that, oh, wow, Ariel like shouted him out. Ariel and Brendan had a big beef back in the day. It was pretty funny, actually. But anyway, so now Brennan chimes in and responds one more time, and I'm going to give you my take because I just feel like Brennan's totally missing the mark here. But again, it's exactly what Moicano said. It's because he's looking at this through his own lens, how he would look at a business decision or one of these moves. And it's just like purely financial, devoid of any other deeper considerations, which is why I think he's completely misunderstanding why Moicano did this. But we're going to hear this and I'll respond, and then we're going to close it out.
Penny of that. He's allowed to do that. My point of bringing up he bets with $200,000 is, Moicano, you turning it down.
The money's already there.
It's being allocated whether you turn it down or not. Right. So it's so hard to make $100,000, $50,000, $150,000, $200,000. But you turning it down isn't because, oh, I'm a man of dignity and I give people my word. It has none of that. You got to carry yourself like you're a business, because Dana's conducting himself like he's a business. That's all I'm saying.
It's not personal.
Why though? What does that mean? Like you're saying you can conduct yourself however you want in line with your morals and what makes you feel good. It doesn't mean just because other people are going to conduct themselves in a particular way you could do whatever you want. If you're comfortable with missing out on that cash and your family's in line with you and you're already doing great and doing phenomenal, why? The logic makes no sense, in my opinion, as like Brendan's saying, like you have to do it because the UFC is conducting themselves that way. You have to conduct yourself this way. No, it's a personal decision. And again, I applaud him for that personal decision. I'm going to let Brendan keep continuing.
It's also not a knock on Dana White and UFC. They've earned everything.
Yes.
And finally, someone kind of stuck up to them. They got a small slice of the pie. Yeah. And now you're not taking the pie. Dana would probably respect you more for taking it, because he's a businessman.
I hope Dana
Moicano's here. Go down.
I hope Dana does reward Moicano for his loyalty. I hope that happens.
Excuse me? Define reward. He already rewarded him by giving him a fucking title shot.
Yeah.
So here's Moicano, who I absolutely adore. It has nothing to do with the UFC. I don't expect the UFC to treat me well because of this. The UFC is a company. A company doesn't like you. They want profit. Correct. And you're a company, Moicano. That's my message to you. You're no different than UFC. You are your own LLC. So you got to do what's best for you. Turn it down is not best for you. It's also not best for the UFC. Yeah. The money's already being allocated. So he goes, this is about principles. I knew about the deal. I signed the contract. A contract is nothing more than your word. I'm not going back on my word just to gain a financial benefit. I don't expect anyone to understand that.
He's a very honorable man. I love him. I respect what
you know what saying. It is though. You know what? And
it might be a little naive.
Moicano's brilliant as far as like his financial and stuff. He's a very smart guy.
He's also like he's just such a.
But here's he's a great fighter. Yeah, fighter's fighter. Yeah, he's amazing. Yeah. His show's also called like Show Me the Money, which is insane. But meaning because he's not taking the money.
Yeah.
Even if you're financially set right now because you're active fighting, this all goes.
So again. He's just fixated on this one point. You should take the money right now because maybe one day you'll need it. That's not his point, right? It's a moral objection. He wants to feel clean and walk away feeling like he's doing what makes sense and what was in line with his intention at the time. He's almost like doing his what's it called? Mens rea check. You know, what's your intent at the time of the action? And so that's what he's going back and checking in with. And he's saying, nope, I signed it knowing what I was getting into, and I'm going to stick to that. There's nothing here having to do, again, it's exactly what Moicano said. Brendan's looking at it through the lens of himself, of how he would view it. There's no ulterior motive. He's not trying to get something out of it. He's not trying to play chess. There's nothing strategic here. It's just what is going to make him walk away and feel good at the end of the day. It's the same thing if you walk by and you see, I don't know, $1,000 on the ground, and I don't know, this is like a really terrible example, but like you see money on the ground and it's right there. Legally, you could potentially pick it up and take it, right? Nobody's there to claim it. But maybe you might not feel good about doing that. And instead, hey, there's a desk right over here. Maybe somebody dropped it and potentially that person might come back and look for that. It's a large sum of money. What would you do? Legally, you're allowed to grab that money. Right at this point, the possession of that money has been lost, so you can grab it, take possession of it, and now it can change ownership, right? But instead, you may be like, you know what, I'm gonna feel so bad about this. I just know somebody probably needs that money or is looking for this money potentially. I'm gonna turn it in. Let's say you know that the person who you turned into isn't gonna jack it either, right? Okay, but like in this world, you can clearly understand this type of mindset. And it's not about in this case, okay, that the UFC is not getting that money back. It's not a perfect analogy, but point, it's not about the outcome. It's about how he feels about himself and him sitting at home at night, going to bed, being like, yep, I did what feels right and what resonates with me in my heart. I'm cool. That's what it's about. Okay. Anyways, those are my 2 cents on this whole matter. I think Moicano is a pure legend for doing this, not for any other reason than he's just sticking to what he believes in and blocking out all the noise, and doing it with this. We're not talking $1,000. We're not talking 10,000. We're talking about whatever it was, like 200,000 or $150,000. Like, that's a big sum of money. That's got to be really hard. And I think he should pat himself on the back for taking the stance and doing what he feels right, whether or not it was the right thing in terms of what was done contractually and all that, or what makes sense for other people. It's irrelevant. He's doing what feels right to him in this moment. And I think he should get major credit for that. I mean, what else is life about? We're not just trying to sit here and make as much money as possible without any regard to anybody else. All this ends one day. It's not about that. It's not even about, it's just nothing lasts forever. It's got to be about something more, I think. I don't know. Anyways, that's all I got for you guys. Moicano's a legend. Thank you guys so much for joining. We'll see you in the next video. Take it easy.